As dietitians, we mostly recommend that our clients or patients follow a food-first approach when it comes to health or sport, and their diet, of course. And basically what that means is we prefer to rather make use of the foods in our diet for health benefits and for sport events or whatever the case may be, before we actually rely on supplements necessarily. However, in a few cases, we do definitely need to rely on supplements to assist in this, as food might not be enough for whatever we want to achieve. So today I just wanted to talk a little bit about when would that be, and I'm going to focus more specifically on sport, because this is the field where it mostly becomes a lot more necessary to rely on supplements to really get you through that intense sporting event, if you have one. So I know there's one coming up this weekend for a lot of people, the 94.7, and I was actually at the expo, so I just saw all the different nutritional brands there and supplements and stuff. And I think that often people have this question and wonder, should they be taking supplements? What supplements should they be taking? Or can they be racing something like a 94.7 or a marathon or whatever the case may be on food alone, or do they need supplements? All right, so let's jump in. So first of all, where we typically want to rely on supplements is when we see that if you or a client or a patient doesn't necessarily see themselves being able to consume a sufficient amount of protein and specifically a sufficient amount of carbohydrates in the form of food in something like a race, like a 94.7 or a marathon or a triathlon or whatever it might be. So that means that you can't really see yourself eating a sandwich or potatoes or fruits and that type of thing. And that's when we start to see that a carbohydrate drink might be beneficial, something like an Energade or Coke, or it could then be a proper, formulated carbohydrate drink, something like a 32 GI, Hammer, Biogen, USN. There's so many different brands, and brands really depend on your preference and your budget and taste, of course. So when it comes to these things, we also see that a lot of companies are focused on making the carbohydrate drinks a lot more easily digestible, especially for people that struggle with stomachs that get upset when they're doing long distance or endurance types of events. And this is where we see multi-transportable carbohydrates come in. So it's a big word, but basically what it comes down to is it's a mixture of different types of carbohydrates that can actually enter the cells at the same time, compared to overloading the body with only fructose or only glucose, which might lead to a bottleneck effect, and that might lead to stomach cramps or diarrhea. So if you are someone that loves to do endurance types of training or races, and you see yourself maybe struggling with a runny tummy or gastrointestinal distress, then I do urge you to look at brands that focus on multi-transportable carbohydrates. So you can definitely look on the label or let us know if you have any specific questions when it comes to that. So that's the first one. If you don't see yourself actually consuming that amount in the form of food, or if you do struggle with maybe having an upset stomach in a long distance type of race. Another thing that we often see where we might need supplements is, and this can also happen in just health in general, not just sport necessarily, is when we see that there's a deficiency. So sometimes supplements do definitely help with just correcting that deficiency. Deficiencies could be often very common iron and then also vitamin D. So both of these are definitely not something you should just be taking off the bat. You should definitely be testing it with your physician, testing bloods, and then seeing if you do have a deficiency, and then of course taking a supplement according to that, and then monitoring it and making sure that you're not overdoing it at the end of the day. But we do see that if there's an iron deficiency or vitamin D deficiency, it often is very difficult to correct it with food alone, and that's where a supplement might be become handy in that sense. Also on that note, if we do see that patients or clients are following a very specific or strict diet, let's say vegan or vegetarian, or they're cutting out quite a few different food groups, then it's often when we see that they're not consuming enough of a certain food group that has a certain nutrient in it, and that's where a supplement might be beneficial, like for example vitamin B12 and again iron, often in your vegan and vegetarian clients, for example. So those are typically areas where we see that a food first approach might not be enough. However, the point that I do want to make is that we definitely still need to focus on diet first. That needs to be a solid foundation. You need to actually be putting in 95% of the effort in your diet, and then of course that supplement on top. That's basically what it means. Supplement is supplemental, so it's on top of the diet and it doesn't replace the diet. So we definitely want to make sure that we focus on food first, and then of course go on to supplements if it's necessary. A last note on this is also when we see that consuming a specific type of nutrient in foods would be impractical to get the ergogenic effect, in other words, the beneficial effect. So this would be things like creatine or beta-alanine, especially in your sport. That's when we also see that a supplement might be beneficial. So you can definitely get creatine and beta-alanine from your foods, but you would need to consume quite a massive amount of meat, for example, to get that in the concentration that we actually need for it to be beneficial or for it to have its effect. So that's also where we see that it might be beneficial to take a supplement. So there is definitely room for supplements, but of course, like I've mentioned already, food is definitely where we want to start first and then build on top of that. I hope this has been helpful. Let us know if you have any questions. If you're doing the 94.7, good luck and enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next one.